Is Passover pagan? Yeah, what's going on, party people in the place to be? I go by the name of the BK Podcast, transmitting all the way live. New York is the city, Brooklyn is the borough. What's good? What's popping? Hope everybody's doing well. Of course, we gotta say what's up to the party people in the chat. We got Wawo first, first to be in the chat. Way to go! And of course, we have the indelible, the incredible, the outrageous, the gift of God Himself, Nate 2D2. We got Bodega Lady Dean you on the check-in. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not already, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend and tell a friend that's him again. And if you like how it goes down at the BK Podges, please show your support via PayPal. And if you'd like to be a monthly supporter of BK, you can do so by becoming a patron, where you'll be given an assortment of goodies to enhance your daily Bible study, or weekly or bi-weekly. I'm not here to judge. As long as you get into the word, that's what's important, right? So, yes. So, to have B Moses in the building was good, man. Appreciate that, sir. Appreciate that. So, you're probably wondering what in the world is Fredo going to talk about today, right? We're going to talk about Passover, we are in the midst of this amazing festival celebrating the rescue of Israel from the house of bondage, right? And but if that's such a great thing, why am I even talking about it within terms of paganism, right? So you have to, there's a method to my madness. So you got to stick to the end to see why am I even having this discussion with you guys. And the two questions I will want us to be able to answer is one, does Passover have pagan origins? And two, is Passover itself a pagan festival? Right? So, with that being said, let's get into the slides. All right, we're going to look at Exodus, a commentary, the Old Testament library by Martin Knopf. It says here, the Passover sacrifice stands continually in the foreground. This sacrifice has its own special cultic prehistory, independently of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. It stems from a different sphere of life from agricultural feasts of unleavened bread, for originally it's almost certainly belonged to the milieu of nomadic shepherds, and thus without doubt goes back to the time before they settled in a cultivated region. In this region, where more or less settled possessors of flocks who are not unsubstantial element of the population, it was still celebrated and combined with the feast of unleavened bread. So, what this commentary on Exodus is saying, that this Passover, the celebration of the unleavened bread, has a cultic prehistory. All right, so let's continue. Here in the dry season of the year, after the reaping of the fields, nourishment can still be found in their flocks, and when the work of cultivation begins again in the autumn, they return to their winter pasturage. The beginning of their travels, with the accompanying dangers of man and beast, especially for the newborn, of whom the firstborn was particularly precious, must have been occasion for a special animal sacrifice, primarily to keep away evil powers. Now remember, this is a biblical commentary, giving us some cultural background to the Passover. In view of all this, we should assume that the Passover sacrifice was already known in the time before Israel became settled and before the stay in Egypt, as a cultic ceremony performed before the spring departure to the summer pasturage. It then acquired a particular historical reference as a constantly repeated cultic representation of the one great departure, namely the departure of Egypt. So, what the commentator is saying here is that there was this ritual that occurred within these nomadic shepherds that in order to have safe travel from one place to the place of pasturage, they would have this ceremony, and they would sacrifice this animal to ward off evil. And this is something that happened before there was even in Israel, before there was even in Exodus. So the commentator is giving us some cultural background here, right? And there's various festivals that actually Passover draws from. And one of them, we're going to talk about the origin of Massoff and the Massoff Festival. This is from Julian Morgenstern, the American Journal of Theology, University of Chicago Press. Okay? It says here, it is generally accepted fact that the biblical festival of Pesach, or Passover, is the result of the amalgamation of two ancient festivals, the original Pesach and the Halag Hamassoth. I'm sure I'm butchering that. Please forgive me. All right. So, again, saying here that it's a grouping, it's a mashup of two ancient festivals. Pesach was in origin essentially a shepherd festival, observed by the Israelite tribes in common with practically all Semitic peoples in the nomad stage of civilization. Upon it, apparently, the firstlings were offered as a taboo sacrifice to the deity, conceived of primarily as the creator and bestower of life. Again, he's saying that this was a common festival among nomadic Semitic people who were shepherds. Okay, this was not a new thing for these Semitic people who would become the nation of Israel. However, after these nomad tribes had taken up permanent residence in Canaan and had passed over to agricultural stage of civilization with the necessary modification of original shepherd customs and religious rites, this sacrifice of firstlings upon this annual festival developed into the sacrifice of a yearling lamb or kid for each household, now the regular social unit. This was known as the Paschal Lamb or Paschal Sacrifice and became the characteristic feature of the celebration of the original nomad festival in the new agricultural environment. From its beginning, Pesach seems to have been celebrated at night and to have been only one night's duration. All right, now, let me see what's up with the people in the chat. All right, everybody's cool. Please like, share the link. We're getting into Israelite religions and archaeological and biblical survey by Richard S. Hess. He says, speaking of yet another festival, the Imar Zikru festival compares with the spring festivals of Passover and unleavened bread, as well as other ritual festivals in West Semitic religion of the second millennium BC. There are at least 6 important points of comparison. First, both are referred to by Semitic verbal roots, to speak, remember, invoke. Right? The Zukru festival is an invocation to the gods with a spoken component no longer preserved. Fleming compares this to Hebrew, quote, giving thanks, and to the biblical Hebrew, an offering that remembers God and produces a, quote, fragrance for the direct point of contact between the giver and God. Both Zikru and Passover festivals require the roasting of a lamb. Third, in both festivals, twilight is a critical time. Fourth, at Imar, this festival constitutes a 7-day sequence in which the climatic event happens on the powerful 7th day. So here we're doing a compare and contrast, and we're seeing that this festival is very much similar to what we've come to know as Passover. And it was celebrated by other Semitic people within this region prior to their being in Israel. Okay. Like the biblical feast of Passover and unleavened bread, Zikru also occurs in the 15th day of the first month and lasts for a 7-day cycle, in which the first and last days are the most important in terms of activities. Fifth, all the gods are brought out of the city for the Zikru festival, and the populace, who also come out for the Zikru festival, is provided with bread and drink. These compare with the banquet of Israel's elders with God in Exodus 24, verses 9 through 11. And David's festival of bringing the ark into Jerusalem and giving food to the people as part of a celebration. Passover was also celebrated with special bread and with drink. All right. Point of comparison considers the antiquity of the Zukru festival. The mention of the Zukru at 18th century BC Mardi suggests that this ritual was older and more widespread than the 13th century BC Emar. It seems to have involved the chief god of the region where it was practiced. The memorial festivals of Passover and unleavened bread may thus have West Semitic antecedents. Thus, the Passover and Feast of Unleavened Bread have similarities with the Zukru festival at Emar and elsewhere. The similarities in matter of some detail are unlikely to have been coincidental. These imply that these two were not originally separate, but at Emar composed a single unified festival. Again, we have these various festivals throughout this region of the what we now call the ancient Near East, which we find these rituals being combined in what we now call Passover. The ritual for the storm god seems to have occurred in the early spring, just as the ritual of the Passover took place in the spring in Israel. Leviticus 23, 5-8. Although little is known about the storm god at Emar, it is clear that the evidence from Ugarit and the Bible associate this deity with Baal and his roles as warrior and one who provides for the fertility of the land and bringing forth a rich harvest. The biblical Passover's position in the spring also associates the roles of Israel's God with a warrior who fought against Egypt and delivered Israel from there, and with one who had given the harvest and blessings of the land to Israel. So what we're seeing here, right? We're seeing Passover it's formulated to be a polemic, right? So again, if you look throughout Exodus, especially the Song of Moses, which is one of the greatest disc records ever written in Exodus, there's this constant belittling of these other deities. So God is taking this festival, something that was familiar to the Semitic people, and usurped it and subverted it as a polemic. Because God is saying he's the warrior. He's the protector. He's the one that blesses agriculture. Not Baal, not some other guy from Emar, right? It's Yahweh that does this. This is the point of the Passover. The discovery and study of the Zukru festival at 13th century BC Emar has shed light on the discussion. The Zukru demonstrates that there are special festivals in the spring among West Semitic groups such as the population in Emar. The Zukrus derive from the same verbal root to remember, invoke, as that found in biblical description of Passover. I think I copied that already. I think I said it already. So, yeah, I did that one too. So now, not only do we find similar festival rituals in like Mesopotamia, but we also find something similar in Egypt itself. Let me see how everybody's doing in the chat. Everybody's good. Yep. All right, keep it moving. This is entitled God's Infanticide in the Night of Passover, Exodus 12, in the Light of Ancient Egyptian Rituals by Thomas Schneider. Rituals and the aversion of plagues and threats. In terms of how the ritual actions classified by the Egyptian titles of protection rituals, the focus is either on the type of threat from which protection is sought, quote, to pacify segment, or on the individual person or object that needs protection, quote, protection of the flesh of Pharaoh. The most menacing threats were deities such as Sekhmet, the goddess of plague and pestilence, and demons inflicting illnesses and death, particularly during dangerous periods of the year. For example, after the annual Nile inundation, when the plague of the year occurred at night during the 5 epochal days of the Egyptian year. The most significant targets needing protection were the ordered existence of this world and the Egyptian king as its earthly guarantor. I give here a number of representative quotes pertaining to the plague of the year caused by Sekhmet from the text ranging from the New Kingdom to the Ptolemaic period. And it says here, the night of the flame appears, when she has smashed the 2 lands with the fear of her, when she has burned everything to ashes, as life and death belongs to her, at her discretion, when she has given disaster throughout the 2 lands, and assigned all slaughterers to their massacres. All right, this is speaking of the goddess Sekhmet. The goddess is now addressed. One performs for you the sacrifices in the form of what you love. When you turn your face to the south, north, west, and east, the fear of you is in them. Wherever you emerge on the valley roads and the mountains, you instill the fear of you in the gods. Your plague throughout the country's populace, you devour blood. You equip the gods who are over the fetters on the days of your wanderers. You have split the mountains with your plagues. You have killed all the livestock through fear of you, lady of fear, who causes great trembling, who captures the gods in her fulgur. Now, doesn't this sound familiar to the avenging angel in the Exodus account? Right? Strangely familiar here. Now the goddess speaks. I am the mighty one. I have power over my enemies. I make the demons go out on their task. Millions tremble before me, being docile. And here's a spell for purifying anything in from the plague. It says, may your emissaries be burned, Sekhmet. Let your slaughterers retreat, Bastet. No year, parentheses, demon, passes along to rage against my face. Your breeze will not reach me. I am Horus, set over the wanderers. Old Sekhmet, I am your Horus, Sekhmet. I am your unique one, Uto. I will not die on account of you. I am the rejoiced one. I am the jubilated one. O son of Bastet, do not fall upon me. All devourer, tousled ones, do not fall upon me. Do not approach me. This repertoire provides Egyptian parallels for the figure and the ritual context of the demon of Passover sent by Yahweh. Now, of course, we don't believe it's a demon. This is what the writer is using here. Sent by Yahweh in the form of demons sent by the Egyptian goddess of plague Sekhmet during the plague of the year and other perilous times such as the epigomenal days and the night. The protection ritual, quote, bedroom of the palace, protects the house of Pharaoh and his life during the night. It is equally celebrated at nightfall and comprises a ritual not identical but similar to the Passover one, in which the openings to the house were anointed in order to avert the attack of demons. The Egyptian rituals also presuppose a similar nexus between a more general plague and more specifically the death of Pharaoh's son. It is visible in Exodus 12, continuation of the plague cycle in Exodus 7:11. Now hold up. So basically what happened is one of the main gods is sick of human beings and they send Sekhmet to kill people. But she has this bloodlust and the gods can't stop her now. So they have to go to the god of beer. Yes, they had a god of beer in Egypt. And they made a special beer with red dye in it so it looks like blood. And they would smear it around. So when she would see it, it looked like blood, but it was really beer. So she would get drunk and pass out. And that's how they stopped the apocalypse. Right? So we see, again, God using this as a polemic. It's like, it's not about Sekhmet. It's me. And I'm going to protect my people. And this little ritual that Pharaoh does to protect himself, it's not going to work today. Again, it's a polemic. God is using these familiar rituals from the people around Israel as a polemic against them. In this vein, the ritual to prevent the demon from entering the house of Israelites, and instead they have the demon kill the king's son and other firstborn Egyptians, could be an appropriation of Egyptian rituals aimed at that very protection. By removing the divine protection from the Egyptians, assigning it to Israel, and dispatching his slaughtering demon to Pharaoh's palace, Yahweh indeed, quotes, brings judgment on all the gods of Egypt, Exodus 12:12. The gods who had failed as the protective deities of the 12 hours of the night. So again, he's belittling the Egyptian pantheon, the Ened, right? They can't do anything. And he's subverting their own rituals against them. It's almost like, a wrestler using his famous finishing move and it being reversed, right? That's kind of what God's doing to all of them, okay? Let me see here. So, I said a lot. I read a lot. Okay. So now hopefully we can answer these questions. So, based on what we've read today, does Passover have pagan origins? If you say that it does, please put a 1 in the chat. Based on what we've read this evening, does Passover have pagan origins? Is Passover unique to only Israel, or was similar festivals already in effect prior to the formation of Israel? Put a 1 in the chat if you agree that Passover had pagan origins. I will wait. Okay. Is it unique? Is this festival unique to Israel? Or was this a mismatch of various Semitic festivals that God now uses? Nate, I said a 1. That's not a 1, Nate. Anybody else? Okay. Sure, there's a delay here. But so I'm going to answer yes. Right? Based on what we've read, there were similar festivals prior there being a Israel. You had the Zukru festival. You had these incantations about Sekhmet. You had various other festivals that these shepherds would use, right? So it had pagan origins. Now, the second question, is Passover itself pagan? When Israel gets together and they have this Passover meal, are they worshiping another God, or are they worshiping Yahweh? Of course, the answer to that is yeah, they're worshiping Yahweh. They're not worshiping another God. They're not. Right? It's about Yahweh. In fact, Passover is very much a polemic against these other religions and these other festivals. Right? Yahweh is saying, I am the true protector. I am the true rescuer. I am the one that blesses and gives rain. That's what I do. Baal doesn't do that. Sekhmet definitely doesn't do that. None of these other gods do that. Right? So the Passover festival itself, not pagan. So now, why am I bringing all this up? Well, you see how we can clearly separate the two? Even though the Passover festival might have had origins in other religious festivals dedicated to other gods, we know that the Passover itself has nothing to do with them. In fact, it goes against the other festivals, right? And why am I bringing that up? Well, we know every time Easter shows up and Christmas shows up, we all get into these massive discussions about whether or not these holidays are pagan. And many of us, we've done our research and we've shared our research, and we've shown that things like Easter and Christmas do not have pagan origins. But yet people still want to put that on these holidays. But Passover actually has pagan origins. It actually does have pagan origins from various festivals throughout the ancient Near East. But no one says Passover is pagan now, do they? No. And neither do we. Right? Why? Because who's being celebrated? Yahweh is being celebrated. And he's being celebrated over these other so-called deities. So if we can celebrate Christmas and Easter that doesn't have pagan origins, then we should have no issue with Passover, even though it does have pagan origin. Because we know that when Israel gets together at this time of year to break bread, We all know what the intent is, and we all know which God they are worshiping. Just like Christians, when they put up that Christmas tree, or they're walking around with these eggs, we know which God they're worshiping. We know. Right? So if you want to play the legalism game, you want to play the pagan origin game, I advise you not to. Because you might find some things that you thought was just super duper, just unique to scripture, and find out that that's not the case. And that's fine. Because God constantly, throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament, uses the cultural background of the people that he communicates with, and he uses it to communicate the actual truth, which is there's no God but Yahweh, and that we need to bend the knee and pledge our allegiance to him. So that's it. That's all I wanted to share. Passover, does it have pagan origins? Yes. Is Passover itself pagan? No. It does not. Okay. So I hope this helps, and again, and I've warned people, let's not play the pagan origin game, because you might not like where the data takes us. And for me, it just shows how God is a great communicator. And what matters to him is for him to be understood. Because he could have invented something completely unique. But he didn't do that. He's like, no, I'm going to take these various festivals that you have grown accustomed to, and I'm going to flip it on its head so that you can see that I'm the God that needs to be worshipped, because I'm the one that rescues. I'm the one that defends. I'm the one that stops the avenging, shedding of blood. That's me. I do that. Not Baal, not these other gods. It's a polemic. It's an apologetic against these other deities. That's what Passover is. So if we could nuance and figure that out for Passover, how about we leave Christmas and Easter alone? Because we already shown that it doesn't have pagan origins. You know what I mean? So, but that's it, guys. I just want to share that. I'll be back on tomorrow with SOC and True ID, Adam Coleman. We're going to be dismantling some Hebrew Israelite strongman arguments. And then Friday, boy, them bodega bums are back at it, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to be dealing with the IUIC precept packet. And we're just going to dismantle a whole bunch of them and have fun doing so. So please be here the next couple of days. It's going to be fun. Thank you, Mr. Fox, for the super chat. Appreciate it. And make sure that you guys focus on Mr. Phil Fox channel. He's about to do an amazing series. I'm not going to talk about what it is, but it's going to be ground shaking. I'm definitely looking forward to it. So again, tomorrow, me, SOC, and Adam, and then Friday, those bodega boys are going to go at the precept packet, these proof texts of IUIC. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, and I can't be just like, yeah, man, I'm old school with it, bro. I'm definitely old school with it. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, catch you mañana. Peace.